Now, in the daily time frame, the RSI is moving to a new low. It may change if we attempt a recovery before the recession, or before the session ends with Bitcoin. If we get a bottoming tail back above this support level that we're breaking right now, so you might form a divergence right here on the histogram on the MACD. You are forming one. So again, we'll see if we attempt some kind of recovery here. Here's the histogram. You can see the histogram is forming a divergence. So we'll see what happens. And down here on the RSI, we're at extreme. So again, you're probably going to see some kind of bounce here. And then the question is, do we get back above 107,000? Do we have a leading diagonal once we get some kind of bottom? Do we get a leading diagonal? So far, we've had the head and shoulders. Again, the larger triple top, the head and shoulders, and the final peak here. And again, we broke down from the neckline and we back tested. We broke down, we back tested. Does that level now become resistance? If we do rally back up, you get a lower high. You could see a big drop if you get a lower high below 107,000, moving back towards the April low. So again, likely to get some kind of bounce. The question is, will we be able to move above this high? And again, if we do we get a bigger recovery or not? And it's now the waiting game. If we continue to drop, right now we're moving beyond the 50% retracement of the entire advance from the April low. If we drop a little bit more to 91,000, you're at the 61.8 Fibonacci. Again, told you several videos we're likely going to drop down further into the low to mid 90,000 range, low 90,000s or the mid 90,000 area, and that's what we're doing right now. Move may not be done yet. We got some bottoming signals, but it only gave us a feeble bounce. Now we're going to get this death cross. So again, do we try to find a bottom here or a little bit lower? 61.8 Fibonacci at the 91,000 area. Eventually, I think we're going back to test this low and eventually take it out at 74,000. In crash wave 3 here, do we have a leading diagonal that gives us a bigger recovery? That's a $64,000 question. The beautiful topping signals at the top in the daily and the weekly time frame, and those signals have now played out. Here you can see we broke the trend line and we back tested it, got rejection at the 50 and turned off of the 50 and the 200, which are about to get a death cross. Weekly topping signals playing out beautifully. I warned you at the top they were forming. Please support the channel with the link directly below. That allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like my charts, you like my indicators, let me know that by supporting the channel today. I don't know about you, but these signals have really helped me, caused me to get very, very bullish at the April low, very, very bearish at the October high, calling the top, calling the bottom. Really helped me to see what's going on. And if that helps you, please let me know that by supporting the channel. I don't have any sponsors. Most YouTube channels have sponsors. I choose not to do that. I turn those offers down. I need to hear from you in order to make it work. If you like my indicators, you like my charts, let me know that by helping out. Just step up to the plate, help out, do what you can. Anything helps. Let me know that you want me to do this and that you like this information. And if you could just take a moment, follow the link below to a secured site and make a donation, support my YouTube channel, I would really, really appreciate it. I choose to do that rather than have, affiliate links, send you a bunch of stuff, sending you to some brokerage that wants to, get you leveraged up and wipe you out. Just consider helping out today. And here, there's no bottoming signal yet. I'll be watching for one. Drop down further. Again, you got the trend line in the monthly, you got the trend line in the weekly. Current run up, the longer trend line in the monthly time frame, but I'll be watching. Do we see some kind of bottoming signal develop? Beautiful, beautiful sell signals at the top. We're seeing distribution. A minor bottoming signal, no major bottoming signal here. Get it with the counter trend. So I'll be watching to see if any signals develop. And here in the daily time frame, I'm watching to see if a bullish divergence ends up developing on the awesome oscillator. Maybe the RSI in the daily time frame is forming on the histogram, the MACD histogram right now. But again, can we get a short-term bounce? And if we do, how big will it be? In crash wave 3 or putting the final touches on primary wave 1 to get primary wave 2. And those are the two most likely possibilities. Got bottoming signals on a lot of indicators, but again, it only gave us a bounce. We'll see if we get another bottoming signal or signals in the near future. This is not a bullish chart, folks. This is a bearish chart in the monthly time frame. When this trend line breaks right here in the monthly time frame, Bitcoin's going to get a much bigger drop. Okay, it is the Friday session. Bitcoin's down around 4% right now. It's been down more than 4% at the lows. Again, I warned you in the last couple of videos we were likely going to move to a new low, taking out the previous low here at the high 98,000 and taking out the low over here from June 22nd at the low 98,000 area and move down to a new low. I talked about this trend line or overthrowing it and getting a bottoming tail under it, moving down into that low to mid 90,000 range. Right now we've hit a low. Right now we're at 95,000. We hit a low. We hit a low at 94,500 or so. And again, talked about two scenarios. One is a leading diagonal, which you see right here. It forms a bullish falling wedge looking pattern, but it doesn't end up taking Bitcoin to new highs. It's a leading diagonal in sections of 3. The other possibility, as I've said, is that we're in crash wave 3. But I told you we are likely going to form that divergence in the 4-hour time frame, move to new lows, and either get a bounce back up somewhere below this low right here, and then see the bottom fall out of Bitcoin, or this leading diagonal scenario. And again, wave of speculation. No, you're supposed to know the future. I don't know the future. I'm a trader. I look at support and resistance. At resistance, I told you I thought we were topping. And again, I think I'm correct at 126,000. At resistance, I told you we were going down to Bitcoin's average price and to the 100,000 area. That's the 50-week moving average of Bitcoin's average price. I was correct. Laughed at, I was mocked, I was called every name in the book, but yet my indicators were right yet again. And I'm a trader. I don't care which way Bitcoin goes, up or down. I trade it back and forth. But any rally back up here, if we do get this ABC for a wave 2, a primary wave 2, that's a gift to the bears and an opportunity to the longs to exit their long positions. So again, I do think we're going to see a bounce. The question is, how big is the bounce going to be? You should know. You should know the future. People are just so out of touch with reality. Look, I told you, what I've told you is that we're going to peak. We're going to get this drop down to the 100,000 area. And then recently I told you we're going to make a new low. I thought a divergence would form at the 4-hour chart. I think the divergence will give us a bounce. The question is, I don't know how big that bounce is going to be. These are the two scenarios that I think are most likely. If you think that Bitcoin is going to reach 200,000, Tom Lee's telling us, if you think it's going, he was saying 200 to 250,000 by the end of the year. Now he's, oh, well, maybe 200,000, but maybe 150,000. If you believe Tom Lee's target of 200,000 by December in the next 6 weeks or so, you are suffering from Bitcoin permabull Moonboy syndrome. PMS, permabull Moonboy syndrome. Out of touch with reality of what's going on. Bitcoin's likely already topped. I continue to say it. I've been saying it for the last 6 weeks. Now, again, I warned you back at the top. Eventually, we drop back to the 50-week moving average and Bitcoin's average price, and eventually we would see a death cross. And I warned you the Moon Boys would be telling us that would be a bottom. Now, if we bottom out right here with a divergence in the 4-hour time frame, again, Could be a total, if this scenario plays out, this could be a total fake out for the Moon Boys, the herd, everybody believing it's over. The correction they told us was never going to happen. Back at the top, they told us, oh, it's a breakout. Back at the top, when I told you we were topping and a fake out, we slammed right into major resistance in the weekly time frame. So again, a move like this going up, and right now, I'm just marking it. If this low can hold here or not, who knows? If we can find a short-term bottom and you have a leading diagonal, and say we close above this trend line right here or close to it, again, and this scenario begins to play out, we start moving above this high right here at the 107,000 area, then I would be watching for a move towards the moving averages or towards the Fibonacci retracement. So this is still a very possible scenario that could be in play. And if this low holds, our 61.8 Fibonacci is at 114,000, just under this 116,000 area. But if we do see a bottom and we start seeing an attempted recovery and we start breaking this trend line, then this scenario becomes very, very possible. See how much we've dropped since the top, since I called the day of the top. We've dropped now 25%. And again, so we're halfway there. If we get the 50% drop, I told you at the top we're going to see a drop of 40 to 50%. That's never going to happen. You know how many people keep telling me that? If Bitcoin has started a bear market, which I believe it has, it's topped and it started a bear market, well, that's what it's done in the past. It happened at the 2021 top. Bitcoin collapsed by 52% over about 10 and a half weeks, 2.5 months. And then it got a rebound, dropping below the 200 period. The 50 eventually dropped below the 200 period in the death cross. But after the death cross, you bottomed shortly thereafter, and you got this attempted rebound back to where? The 200 period moving average, just above Bitcoin's average price. And then you drop back below the 50, getting rejection off the 200, and the bottom fell out of Bitcoin. You formed a bear flag, and it was a continuation of this. But we dropped how much? 52, just over 52.5%, almost 52.5% there. So again, if you do that right now, you're dropping down to 60,000. But 40 to 50%, this is what happened in 2021. Called the day of the top back here, and was told. Same stuff I'm being told right now, and yet I was correct back then. I'm going to be correct now. Unless my signals, which are correct, turn back to bullish and clear resistance, which I think the chances of that are slim to none. I see evidence of a top, but I follow my indicators. So again, I believe the bear market has started for Bitcoin. Now lost 25% of its value. 2017, 2018, 2017 top, 2018 bear market. What happened? Oh, Bitcoin peaked. It collapsed by 45%, 45.25%, and then it rebounded back to the 50, rebounded back up, and then completely collapsed. And ended up dropping, what was it, 86%, I believe, on that. But again, what did Bitcoin do? It dropped 45%. So Bitcoin has a history to kick off the bear market of dropping, 40, 50% or so. Here it was 45% at the 2017 December top. I'm just showing you the Bitcoin bear markets, what happened to kick those bear markets off. Bitcoin dropped 40 or 50% or so. 2013, the top. Let me just adjust this because it moved on me here a little bit. But from the peak right here, it's 2013 top, kicking off the bear market going into 2014, finally bottoming in early 2015. What did Bitcoin do? Oh, it dropped dramatically. And all of them in a very, very short period of time dropped dramatically, 53.5%. Okay, again, 52% in 2021. 45% in 2017 and early 18, 53.5% here, 2013, and then you get these dramatic rebounds back up. And I think that's going to set up a head and shoulders pattern on Bitcoin, but then it dropped about 84%. So, why are you predicting Bitcoin's going to drop 40 to 50%? I have people say this to me all the time. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Because that's what Bitcoin's done in the past. Kick off the bear markets. If Bitcoin is topped, which I believe it is, at major resistance, and I see evidence of that now, it's likely going to drop 40 or 50% over the next couple of months. and a half, 3 months, something like that, kick off the bear market, and then we're going to get a big rally back up. And I think that rally will be when the Fed finally panics and we get a massive rally. They do an emergency meeting, start jumbo rate cuts, and the herd, especially in crypto, believes that's super bullish, and it will likely give us the counter trend for the right shoulder of the head and shoulders pattern. Now, I'm showing you all the bear markets for Bitcoin. This is 2011. And what did Bitcoin do? It dropped again dramatically. And this is a daily chart we're looking at. So again, you get these dramatic drops. This one, our first bear market, we ended up dropping about 93%. It ended up kicking it off with a nearly 68% drop initially. So this was the first one. That came after that were 40, 50%, 45%, 53%, 52%. So this is why I'm thinking we're going to get a 40 to 50% drop. I think it will likely be closer to a 50% drop, but a dramatic drop, a big rebound back up, and then the bottom falls out of Bitcoin. That's the way the bear markets work. Yeah. And again, as I'm making the video, Bitcoin down 4.13%. Again, how it closes, we'll see if we attempt to rebound. Then the question is, how big of a rebound is that going to be? Could be in crash wave 3 right now. But again, I've been predicting that whether we get a bigger rebound right now or whether we're in the crash wave 3 right now, a leading diagonal completing for wave 1, and then we'll get a wave 2 for a bigger recovery. Again, we're eventually making our way down to 74,000. That's a 41% drop. I think it will likely exceed that level. That's 41%. I've marked it right there. If you drop down 50% to kick out these bear markets, it's been 45, 53.5%, 52%. What did I say? The first one was nearly 68%, I believe. Again, you're looking, if you get a 50% haircut, you're going down to 63,000. Go down 52%, you're going down to 60,000. We did in the last bear market, to kick out the last bear market, 52% lower. So you go, you predicted we're going to get this 40 to 50% drop. What are you smoking? It's what we've done in the past. I get these people say, oh, this time it's different. Adoption and the Bitcoin ETFs. Bitcoin doesn't do that anymore. We don't have bear markets anymore. These people are delusional, man. We're about to have a recession. We're about to have a banking crisis. Bitcoin is not going to be isolated. It's not going to be isolated from all that. It's going to have a wrecking ball taken to it. Bitcoin is the asset with the most volatility. Again, I think you've got this massive head and shoulders. We had a massive head and shoulders. The last time around, we took out the low over here, and we had a kind of a lopsided head and shoulders, the slanted neckline. That's what happened at the 2021 top into early 2022. I think you're going to see something similar. The death cross, and I talked about the death cross at great length of detail in my last video. And I told you, again, leading up to the death cross, which we haven't quite gotten yet, I told you the Moon Boys will be telling us, oh, the death cross going to mark a bottom. And that's why I'm telling you, we could see some kind of fake out move if we get the leading diagonal scenario. I don't know that we get the leading diagonal scenario, but it is certainly possible. We don't want to rule that out. If we are in crash wave 3 right now, could just get a bounce and then continue downward towards December or January, down towards 74,000, down towards 63,000. But then I think the Fed will panic here in all likelihood at the beginning of the year. I'm expecting it in January, maybe by late December, but I think it's going to be January. Bitcoin topped and is going to get a sharp decline. The stock market is now playing catch up. I think you're going to get the Fed dramatically cutting rates with emergency rate cuts, and I think Bitcoin will surge, getting a right shoulder. Maybe it doesn't make it back up to, the low 100,000. This is like 708,000 here. Maybe it doesn't reach that. Maybe it does. Find support around 74,000. But if you get a slanted neckline, you come down maybe to 63,000, then again, this might just be under 100,000, somewhere in the 90 to 99,000 area. I've been predicting that we're going to get this move to kick off the bear market because I've told you for the last 6 weeks, I see evidence that we've topped. I was hoping Bitcoin would go higher. I was hoping it would go to 150 to 175,000, but I told you we are at risk of stalling at resistance. We did that with divergence is forming in the longer term time frames, validation with warning signs and signals in the longer term time frames turning bearish. Then again, Bitcoin has likely topped, and again, have the ability to flip back and forth. I got extremely bullish at 74,000 when everybody was throwing in the towel because we were hitting Bitcoin's average price, major support, horizontal support. It went up, and then we started going sideways, and you got a triple top. You got a peak here in July, you got a peak here in August, you got a peak here in October, and again, you formed multiple point diversions at major resistance and major trend lines, which I talked about, and I warned going into that rally that there was a risk of a top, the ending of the 4-year cycle. But again, the ability to flip, most people in the crypto community don't. Most of them suffer from PMS, Permabull Moonboy Syndrome. A steady diet of Moonboy hoaxes, and that's why the majority of them are going to be wrecked in 2026. Unfortunately, they have to learn things the hard way. And again, whether we get a bounce back to the moving averages of 50 to 200 as they cross, or a bigger bounce if the leading diagonal scenario plays out, again, eventually this is where I think you're headed. I think you got a good shot of a bounce, counting Bitcoin's average price here and the 50-week moving average. But as I keep saying, if we just confirm a bear market, can't get back above those levels, it's extremely bearish. You can confirm a bear market. Bitcoin continuing to drop as I'm making the video, down almost 4.5% right now. Again, can it recover by the end of this session, or do we see it recover coming days ahead and get some kind of rebound? Again, the two scenarios, the leading diagonal, and then we end up getting a larger ABC move, either the moving averages of 50 to 200 or overthrowing them to a Fibonacci retracement. Right now, the 61.8 Fibonacci at 114,600. But again, the session's not over and we may still drop. So again, do we have a leading diagonal? Do we have a bullish falling wedge? And again, when I say bullish falling wedge, it's likely not going to take us to new highs. Bullish falling wedge patterns do. It will likely give us a counter trend. If this pattern sets up, we have primary wave 1, we'll get primary wave 2. The other scenario, we're in crash wave 3, primary wave 3 right now. Mark this as primary wave 1, primary wave 2 back up to 116,000, and then now we've dropped back below the 50, the 200. Here I've marked that we're in this crash wave 3, and we've got the intermediate wave 1 done, we got intermediate wave 2, and we're now in intermediate wave 3, and maybe we get a rebound back up towards the high here at 107,000 before a bigger drop we'll be watching. But again, do we have a crash wave, primary wave 3 going on, and eventually going down to 74,000, bouncing, and then moving, I have here, moving towards 63,000. 5-leg push lower. Those are the two most likely scenarios. And again, if you believe right now that Bitcoin's going to reach 200,000 by the end of the year, in the next 6 weeks, you need a reality check, because again, the bear markets for Bitcoin are 80 to 90%. The last one was a little bit less. It was 78%. We have this head and shoulders pattern. The head and shoulders pattern measures down to 22,000. Okay? An 80% drop from 126,000 takes us to 25,000, very close to the head and shoulders measurement. If we go down to this trend line, which we're turning out the upper boundary of this channel, which I think is likely. Why do I think that it's likely we get a 90% drop with Bitcoin to this trend line would be more like a 91% drop? Why do I think that? This will be the first time Bitcoin moves into a bear market where we have an actual real bear market with the stock market. The bear markets for Bitcoin have been associated with major corrections in the larger bull market for the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. Oh, we dropped 20%. That was a bear market in 2022 for the S&P. No, it wasn't. Just some analyst definition of a bear market. Never lost the 200-week moving average. It never lost the 50-month moving average. Just a major correction. Coin during the S&P dropped 35% during the pandemic in 3.5 weeks. Was that the shortest bear market in history? The stock market has had several drops of more than 20% through the bull market. They were just crashes or major corrections in the larger bullish market. This one, we're going to have the recession, and we're going to actually have a bear market. So I think Bitcoin will have more volatility, and I think it's at risk of taking out 15,000 and going to this trend line. But I think you're going to get an 80 to 90%. If you drop 90%, I'd be looking at the 11, 12,000, 13,000 area. People scoff at this, but this is what Bitcoin has done in the past. It's reasonable to assume if we're going to have a recession and Bitcoin's going to price that in and the stock market moves into a bear market, which I believe the stock market has topped and has already started the bear market and is now playing catch up to Bitcoin like it did back in 2021. First Bitcoin peaked and then the stock market peaked after, and Bitcoin kicked it off with that 52% drop right there. I think it's reasonable to believe that Bitcoin is going to get a bigger drop because the stock market is actually going to move into a bear market. We're going to have a bad recession. We're going to have a banking crisis. So I think an 80 to 90% drop, and I think a 90% drop back towards this trend line, whether we come into contact with it later into 2027 or 2026, depends on how low we go. I think this bear market can be longer for Bitcoin. The bear markets have been about a year. One's going to be associated with the bear market with the stock market. It's going to be associated with the recession. It's going to be associated with the banking crisis. They go on longer. You got all these people going, oh, the 4-year cycle is broken. We now have the 5-year cycle. And again, just nonsense. I do think the 4-year cycle can change because of the recession. Bitcoin is still very, very young. Now, the 4-year cycle is still intact. And again, the 4-year cycle is what I explained to you. One of the reasons why I believe Bitcoin topped at 126,000 at major resistance. Stalled at this trend line right here from the 2021 highs, pointing to the next high, the next top. These lows could be pointing to the next low. So we'll see what happens. We may not make it there. I don't know, but I do think that Bitcoin will drop 80 to 90%. Going into 2026, maybe it drags out into 2027. I've been talking about the Wyckoff distribution model since the top because, again, we're following it beautifully with these two previous peaks moving slightly above them, getting a head fake, and then turning down. We've been following the Wyckoff model beautifully. If we are in crash wave 3, the leading diagonal fails to hold up and we confirm a bear market immediately, then we could continue to follow the Wyckoff distribution model, and that would take us towards the April low, probably beyond it. But again, so far we've been following it pretty closely. This is the Wyckoff model right here, the Wyckoff distribution. Not been perfect, but we've been following it fairly closely. If we have our scenario where we are in crash wave 3, we may try to bounce around this low 90,000 area and then continue the crash, or the leading diagonal scenario getting something bigger if this isn't playing out perfectly. But again, could we see a move going into December and January going down to test the April low and taking it out? I think that is very likely. If we have the leading diagonal scenario set up, that buys us a little bit more time. Eventually, I think Bitcoin is going to drop 40 to 50%. 41% is back to this April low. So the Wyckoff distribution model so far has played out very, very nicely. Again, I've talked about this, people scoffing at me about this, but it has played out nicely. People are getting angrier and angrier that Bitcoin's dropping, in denial. They grab onto any Moonboy propaganda they could possibly get their hands on, dismiss what is happening. And again, it's really that they're in denial. But the Wyckoff distribution model so far has been playing out very nicely. So are we in this crash wave 3 right now? Very, very possible. Now, I want you to listen very closely to what I'm about to say. Again, Bitcoin's forming a divergence on the RSI. It's likely going to get a bounce. Yes, I'm predicting Bitcoin's going to turn down 40, 50% or so, probably by January. It could bounce here. And if we get the leading diagonal scenario, you might get a big bounce to fake everybody out. And you rally back up as a gift to the bears, an opportunity to the bulls to close long positions, as I keep saying. But people like to cherry pick what you say. Again, I told you at the top, we're going down to 100,000. We're going to the 50-week moving average for a test. Recently, we're going to take it out again, form this divergence. Divergence is likely going to give us a bounce, whether that is a small bounce and then we get the bigger crash. We form a rally, we get a rally, and then we see the bottom begin to fall out of Bitcoin and confirm a bear market. You get that leading diagonal scenario. Here I have that we have primary wave 1 down, primary wave 2 done, and we're getting intermediate wave 1, a primary wave 3, intermediate wave 2, and we're now in the crash wave 3. And again, you could have a 1, a 2, and this thing could be really, really ugly. So again, both scenarios are very possible. One of them would confirm a bear market immediately, sooner rather than later. we get a bounce with this divergence and then assuming the decline likely below 107,000 here, the other would take us back above that level, break the downward trend line, and again here I have including the shadows. Here if we exclude it, coming down on the daily chart, it came to right there. If we broke out and then cleared this high right here, then the leading diagonal scenario really comes into play. Getting primary wave 1, and then you're in a primary wave 2. And I don't know which way it'll play out. Those are my two counts that I think are most likely. I told you about a possible divergence developing here. The MACD has got a potential divergence. You've got it down here with Pring parameter. Pring parameter will likely get this divergence, and we're going to get a rally back up. And again, the moon boys will be slapping themselves on the back. Hey, we called up another bottom, the bottom. And again, they told us we had a breakout at the top. They told us we had the flash crash and the liquidation move, the largest liquidation in history. That's the bottom, and we still went lower. And then they said, no, that's the bottom, and we still went lower. And they said that was the bottom, and now they're going to say this is the bottom, and everything's a bottom. That's what the moon boys do. Told you we had a top here, and again, get a little bounce off of the 50-week. Probably see another one, and then we'll see, do we get the bigger recovery or not? Are we in crash wave 3, or are we finishing the first primary wave 1 with the leading diagonal scenario? And again, wave, it's a process of elimination with the Elliott wave. It's not some hocus pocus, Nostradamus prediction of the future. It's about elimination, the process of elimination, looking at correctional moves and impulsive moves. Again, you get people with these unrealistic expectations. No, you should know the future. If I knew the future, I wouldn't need all my indicators, my mathematically based indicators. I would just tell you what's going to happen. Again, you get these people that just are so out of touch with reality. Good indicators, but I don't know the future. Again, we'll see what becomes of these divergences. I expect you're going to try to get a bounce. May go lower before it's done, but I think the divergence will complete. And then we'll see by the weekend, do we try to begin a recovery or on into next week? If you begin a recovery over the weekend, you can bounce off the 50-week moving average and Bitcoin's average price, get back above them, possibly if we get a big rally back up over the weekend. We'll see what happens. Right now, we're down 4.5%. And again, the risk is that we just keep going. You do have a divergence in play. The divergences have played out nicely for me. I've been able to call the tops and bottoms for them. All the divergences have played out except this one right here that only gave us a little tiny feeble bounce, and then we saw more downside. All the other divergences since the July peak have played out very nicely and have allowed me to call the turning points on Bitcoin. I really like my 4-hour chart of Bitcoin. And then we'll see, do we close back above the line? I showed you the leading diagonal bullish falling wedge there on the daily chart. At the top, I warned you Bitcoin was going to go back to the 50-week moving average, back to 100,000. I was right. All the people that were wrong attacking me for being right. It's absolutely incredible. Told me that I was wrong about this, and again, I ended up being correct. The dotted line excludes the shadow. We're taking that out. We'll see what happens if we reach this one, including the shadow right here, down in 2023, the 2023 low there. But I told you last week, again, I expected a bounce off the 50. We did get it. Is that all we get? Is it just a feeble bounce? Or do we get another bounce that's maybe bigger with that leading diagonal scenario, or even a bounce just like this, where, again, you get a bit of a bounce, more of a feeble bounce, but you get a bounce off the 50. But eventually, again, 5 weeks later, you confirm the bear. You got a confirmation with it, or you got a close below the 50-week moving average. 6 weeks later, you confirmed a bear market with an open close below the 50-week. So again, do we see something like that here? More feeble bounce, and then we see the bottom fall out of Bitcoin, or moving down towards 74,000 for a test. You got horizontal support and major support. This is why I called a bottom on the April low. I do believe we're in a bear market. You've got the RSI below 50. You're below the 50 here. If we close below the 50-week moving average, we can confirm one immediately. If we continue to drop, if we continue to fall, that Wyckoff model could confirm it in the next couple of weeks. And again, it could take a little bit of time if we try to bounce off the 50-week moving average. And you can see something like that. The bigger recovery, then you've got that potential Fibonacci retracement for the leading diagonal and that is still a very possible scenario as well. So again, do we bounce before the week ends off the 50-week moving average? Do we move lower and hit the trend line here, try to bounce off the trend line? Or again, do we confirm a bear market immediately? And that's why I'm watching those two scenarios. Are we in crash wave 3 right now, or are we in that leading diagonal scenario? And I think one of those scenarios are likely. It's possible with the death cross about to happen that we could see some kind of bottom for the short term and get a rebound back up to fake everybody out. Don't rule out that possibility. I predicted the Moon Boys would be saying, oh, we're going to get this bottom with the death cross. And what are they doing? They're saying we're going to get a bottom with the death cross. They get a bottom, the death cross, but it likely would be a counter trend rally if we rallied back up. Again, signals suggest Bitcoin has already topped. Indicators are warning Bitcoin has likely topped. That's why I called a top, the day of the top, at major resistance, because I see evidence of that.